Great. Thank you everyone for having me. It is Dr. Malcolm, and I'm from the
sorry.
McNair Spouses Program. My colleague wasn't able to come, so she originally here with me, and so Brenda wasn't here today, but in general, today I'm here still representing TRIO, and it's Dr. Mariscal, happy to be here. I will be sharing my screen, so just give me 1 second. If you're, there we go. All right. All right, and everyone can see the presenter slide, correct? I mean, the public slides, and can see the screen. Yep, thank you. All right, so today I'm here with you from the TRIO McNair Scholars Program, and the McNair Scholars Program is essentially for any students, especially any of you who have an interest in SHIP. So oftentimes we look at students from underrepresented, racially and ethnically underrepresented populations in higher education. So a lot of you might be eligible for McNair. So just thinking about how you can also participate in our program. So McNair focuses on either serving underrepresented populations, and that's Latino, Native American, Black, and Pacific Islander. The other two populations that we focus on is low income or first in their family, and they have to be both first and low income. So those are the populations we serve, and we help them apply to graduate school and obtain research experiences. So that is basically McNair. In a nutshell, it has the legacy of serving those populations, but also just being very transparent with our first generation students, with our populations, because it's oftentimes scary to go into graduate school. So we apply together. We do a lot of the steps hand in hand. We pay our students to do research during the summer. We often pay for students to do conference presentations. So there's different ways in which we fund students. We also do different panels. We do information sessions with graduate schools. This just last fall, we did an information session with Harvard, with the University of Michigan, with the University of Florida, Washington. We just did one with the University of California, Riverside. So there's a wide range of services that we provide in addition to just general advising. So if McNair wasn't on your radar, please consider it. We are actually just reviewing applications. So for those students that did apply, our application was due February 5th. And so that was just, about a month ago. But next year, we encourage students to consider applying. Our application is generally open in October. So please keep it on your radar, especially for those students that are kind of in that midway point of finishing up your sophomore year. So we ask that students are a U.S. citizen or resident, have 60 units by the end of the academic year. So you can be a sophomore and still apply. And so you also have to be a member of the underrepresented minority groups that I mentioned, and be both first generation and low income. So just a plug for McNair, but I'm here just to share more details about how to apply to graduate school, as I saw that you all will be having a panel in the near future. So for today, what I'm really looking to do is have you all kind of be more familiar with the components of the graduate application, right? Because there are different things that you have to learn to make sure that you have before you get to apply. We also want you to know the different campus resources, right? There's McNair, there's Student Support Services, there's the Graduate Student Resource Center. There are other research programs that are available. Of course, there's SHIP. So there are different programs that we want you to know and familiarize yourself. And finally, I also brought with me a timeline and a spreadsheet that can help you organize yourself. So for right now, I want to know more about what are your hopes and challenges, or, just what do you hope your graduate degree will allow you to do? And what do you think are some of the challenges in applying to graduate school? And for this activity, I actually want to close out of sharing so I can see faces or squares, and that's totally fine. But I want to know more about what are your goals and what are your challenges? So what do you hope to do with your graduate degree? And what are some challenges that you think you might be facing? So please feel free to unmute yourself.
Do you want us to just share now, Dr. Mariska?
Yes, Marco, thank you for asking. You can unmute, you can share, feel free.
Sure. So I guess for me, I personally want to do a PhD to find, I guess I'm split right now. I don't know if I want to go the industry or the academia route. I've heard finding a professor position is really hard. So that's something I'm kind of scared about. And I know that for me, the biggest challenge is just the money, is being able to afford it, funding.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Again, your hope, your dream, and any challenges that you foresee in achieving that dream.
Hi, my name is Josh. I'm not sure if graduate school is something I want to do, but I know that a part of the process is letters of recommendation. I feel like that could be difficult to achieve.
Yeah, definitely. It takes time, relationship building. I mean, right now with COVID, some students feel a little bit intimidated to, start that new relationship with a faculty member, maybe that they like, but they don't know how to approach. So I get you. Thank you. Anyone else? Again, any goals you have with this graduate degree and any challenges you foresee having.
I guess for me, it would be, it's just kind of always been a dream to just go to grad school. And the challenge would just be the imposter syndrome, just being a first gen student and seeing it as like, oh, like people like me go to grad school. I don't know.
Yeah, those are very real feelings, feelings that we often hear our McNair scholars share. So I'm also a first gen, I was a first gen student. I can relate to those experiences that are very much, feel like a fraud. You feel like you don't belong in education, or it's all been kind of by accident, or you were lucky, but it's very much about you deserve being in that space. So I think having the proper mentorship, the support systems, having SHIP is a great opportunity to get to learn more about, kind of like-minded people. So continue in those spaces. Anyone else? And if no one else wants to share, that's perfectly fine. I think it's a big learning opportunity, and it's something that will take time to kind of really unveil if you want to pursue. Sometimes it can, still cause a lot of doubt, even if you're kind of sure that you want a PhD, but maybe you change like interests. So it still can be a lot to handle. It can be stressful. So we're kind of just trying to get to know what are the components, what do you need to know now, so you can plan ahead, so you can ask for support, so you can be a part of different programs that will give you that support. So we'll go back to the sharing slide. Okay, so we heard from folks, and thank you for doing that. And so a couple of you said why graduate school. It'll give you, I think, as Marco was saying, kind of that flexibility, right? You can be going into industry, you can go into academia because you'll have a PhD. You can also teach at a community college and you don't have to have a PhD. So let's point that out there, that if you want to pursue a master's degree too, you can also be teaching at a community college. I think it's very dependent on the field that you go into and if that community college has that focus. So I think graduate school has various different reasons, but you have to kind of, it's a long commitment, right? So I think your why needs to be as strong as it can possibly be. So thinking about, we hear students say their family, we hear students say because they want to increase representation, right? So similar to SHIP, there's the population says there's a lot more Latinos, but in industry or in academia, there aren't very many faces that look like us, correct? So I think you have to kind of review what is it that's going to keep you going for multiple years, because some of you might be graduating soon and that might be, you know, you're on your way out. But for the other students that I hear are sophomores, it's still, you know, still a while ways to go. So if you have the time to invest in schooling, this is kind of when to do it. And it can provide just many different opportunities. But one of the reasons that students often continue, and which we also encourage, is because of unemployment rates, right? Especially right now in COVID, we've seen that a lot more people that have a college degree and have a college degree are less likely to be unemployed. So that kind of gives you another sense of security that going for higher education is an investment because it improves your quality of life. Maybe others who had a high school diploma had a, you know, higher wage than maybe some of you that might know, like, oh, I know a teacher that probably earned less. Well, that probably also, you know, the lifestyle, right? Like who gets to be able to enjoy summer break? Not probably a lot of people get to enjoy like 2 to 3 months out of the year, and others might have to work their entire year to be able to earn at least, you know, a couple of days in the year for vacation time. So again, think about it as right now it's very real, very hard with COVID, that so many of our families probably got impacted because of educational credentials. So I think moral of the story, we know that unemployment rates go down as we reach more education. So everyone's kind of on the right path to continue to earn, you know, high quality of life, and that's important, right? So just to know, and there might be others, but these are kind of the common ones, right? There's master's degrees, and then there's Doctor of Philosophy degrees, and those are abbreviated with an MS or an MA. MS is more science driven, sort of like the bachelor's degree, right? So there is the BS or the BA. So it really kind of depends on the field that you go to with everyone's STEM background. It's most likely going to be the MS, and it might be a little different if it's a particular degree that is maybe one, you know, unique and one of a kind. So generally it's going to be an MS or a PhD. So that's kind of the 2 to 3 year mark. Maybe there are some that are accelerated with 1 year, but just know that it's about, you know, 1, 2, 3 years of kind of the max. PhD programs, some can be 4 years, some others can be 6 years. What really, how it's impacted is basically how fast you do your classes, right? Just like the bachelor's degree. If you decide to take 12 units each semester and they say you need 120 if you take 12 per, how many semesters, you probably have to take extra long, right, to finish. So it's kind of similar to the PhD too, where if you take less units, then that means it probably take you a little longer, but in general, you'll get to your degree and your end goal. So it kind of depends on like, are you working, are you not, or do you have funding, right? Because a lot of you said, well, funding, how can I pay for it? So if you have the funding and you don't have to work elsewhere, this might be kind of the path where you want to go. And so let's go. So the general components of masters, both masters and PhD, will require either a personal statement, and the personal statement is different from the statement of purpose. The personal statement is more about who you are. Maybe this is where you say, I'm in first gen. I am, more of what people or what universities often call like adversity or diverse experiences, or tell me anything you haven't told us yet. That's kind of your personal statement. The statement of purpose is more direct to the program you're applying to. So I have a degree in higher education. So I have a PhD in higher education. So the program that I applied to was the higher education program, PhD. So I had to state my goals. So who am I? My goal, my long-term goal is this. This is why I want to be a part of this program and pursue a PhD. Basically, next paragraph, I want to say the research that I've already done, the practical experiences that I've gained that perhaps has enhanced my research thinking or my theoretical applications. And then I say, in the following paragraph section, I would say that the particular program in itself is aligned with my interests in pursuing research, right? Because PhDs is often about research. Master's is less research, but it can have those components of research. So in the statement of purpose, you often want to talk more like business related, right? So you want to say, you like their institution because they offer the courses that are of interest to you, because they do specific research, because there's a particular faculty that can work with you and can mentor you. So I do see questions. I'll check right now what the questions are. So again, personal statement, more of who you are. Statement of purpose, more of like, what is your goal in applying to this graduate program and what experiences have you gained? The program application, of course, this is, demographics, things like that. School application fee, it's kind of important, right? Because you have to pay to apply, just like CSULB. They can range from $80. Some private institutions can be more. But what I'm also saying is that as you apply, there are application fee waivers, especially if you are first gen, especially if you are part of like TRIO programs, as where I'm coming from and representing. So if you are identifying as underrepresented in any type of way, please ask for a school application fee waiver. And you can ask this through the graduate college division. Letters of recommendation, some of you mentioned, that's kind of intimidating. That might be hard to do. So the letters of recommendation, you may need 3, but you want to secure at least 4, because I've had plenty of students tell me, well, I heard from so-and-so, they said yes, but then they've been MIA. What do I do? Do I have a backup plan? So the goal is to have, at least your professor that you've had courses with. And then the next letter writer, you want someone who maybe has seen you doing industry or research related. Ideally, faculty is who you want to write you a letter of recommendation. If it's more masters, I would say more industry, anything that you've gained outside like an internship. But if it's more PhD, do more of do like 2 faculty and perhaps 1 industry, depending on how related that is in the field. If they can really speak to like, oh yeah, the letter recommender maybe has a PhD in the same field, is working at, say, NASA, and then they can vouch for like how, strong you are of an applicant. Test scores, just like undergrad, you did your SAT or ACT, or maybe, so some sort of score entry level exam. That is what we call the GRE. So the GMAT is a different entrance exam, but oftentimes for you all for science is GRE. It's a graduate record entrance exam. And this is composed of like basic level geometry, algebra, some information you probably took a while back that you probably don't know if you can remember. And so it takes a while to kind of refresh. So I would say refresh on the GRE, figure out if there are any GRE courses. The Graduate Studies Resource Center, GSRC on campus, has GRE prep courses. So take a look at that, but also just Google GRE. So it's through ETS, and they can also provide you with some like practice GRE exams. Of course, your official transcripts. So keep in mind that it probably shouldn't be the last week before you submit your applications when you ask for an official transcript, because they probably are backed up. So, it's kind of just another layer of stressors. If you're going to ask for things, make sure you take that into consideration, that you need time. Your resume or CV, your resume is more of your work experience. Your CV has more of the educational components of like, of course, your schooling, your work experience too, but it's also focusing on like conference presentations, research that you've done, research assistantships, teaching assistantships. So it's kind of like everything on it, but more so focused on like research related activities. And then I did see that there were comments in the chat. Oh, no problem. No problem, Daisy. Next part. So as we look into those components, we have to have a plan, and we need to determine if each school, we might like UCLA, we might like USC because they're close, because they're Research One institutions. Maybe there's some sort of other reason, but you have to figure out, are they the fit? And sometimes that can be a little vague. The fit means do your research and open up the UCLA website, type in, mechanical engineering graduate programs. If there are any type of programs for that specific degree and you're interested in it, and you see the courses or you get more information and you like it, and there are multiple reasons why you like it, and you find faculty that you like, that determines the fit. If you just like UCLA because it's close, that's not the fit that you want to determine. So in order to determine fit, you want to attend graduate program information sessions. So as mentioned in McNair, we often do these sessions in partnership with Student Support Services, and we have recently invited Educational Opportunity Program, so EOP, so different programs to attend a graduate information session. So very, very important to know right off, just like a quick scan. Does that institution have the graduate program that you like? Are there faculty that can support you? Faculty, is it first gen faculty? Do they say I'm a first gen? Maybe that is kind of a reason why you want to be there. Is there faculty of color, right? Because as a Latina, I often looked for brown faces that I could identify. So make sure to look into their research as well, because if you don't make a match with their research or what they're doing, they're gonna say, well, you didn't really look into our program. So really scan the website to determine the fit. So if we were on campus, or if we were, past COVID times, planning a campus visit would be ideal, but for now, virtual campus visits will do. And talking to current faculty and graduate students, alumni, again, that's what you all are doing next week. So that's amazing, but also talking to current faculty. So if you have a faculty member that you really have a close relationship, I would say check in with them and let them know, I want to go to graduate school. What programs do you recommend me looking at? They can often refer you to the, programs that they went to, but also other programs that they probably have colleagues there that they trust, and they trust that they will take care of you. And then research funding sources. So funding is kind of, it's a real concern. So if on their page they say we fund every PhD student, the thing is they fund more PhDs than they fund masters. Master's degrees are hardly ever funded. It's kind of a little bit more challenging, right? So you'd have to take out loans, or because for FAFSA, they don't cover any more grants. So you just have to take that into consideration. And you can ask, you can reach out to faculty from the program that you selected. And so if UCLA has a faculty that you liked, you can also email them and say, hi, I'm interested, I'm a prospective student. I want to learn more about your research. I want to learn more about your lab. I also have a question about, how are your students funded? So again, you want to ask funding, you want to ask admissions, you want to ask about, how's it like? What's the community? Are there any other Latinos in there? Does that matter to you? So I think those are important questions. And again, looking for faculty, and you want to look for programs kind of early on. And so the thing is that you have your programs, right? So maybe it's UCLA, USC, maybe it's Michigan. So let's say those three. So if you're looking for a program now, and then it comes down to fall, and you're planning to apply, but then you come to find out that in November, they are not taking any more students. Faculty have a set number of advisees. If they've reached the max amount, then they won't take students. So that means they won't admit you. So that's why it's super important to scout faculty and check who are you a match with. So you can ask, are you taking students? And I'm interested in your program. And how are you funding students, or how are students funding their education here? So again, important things to consider: reaching out early and trying to see if the fit is there. I see a raised hand. Marco, feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. I just had a question about scouting faculty, and I know I went to a previous workshop before, and y'all, this was in person, so this was before COVID, and y'all had these amazing worksheets that we could use to fill out this information. I was just curious if y'all digitize those, because I've been kind of looking for a template to keep all this information, because it's a lot, and I'm kind of overwhelmed by it. So if there's like a Google Sheet or something y'all have, or if there's a good resource you recommend for that, for just tracking faculty that I'd like to do research with.
Yeah, I think you joined us a little late, but I was mentioning that I did. I have a timeline and a spreadsheet that I will share with you all, and I can open it after the presentation. So yes, keeping organized is definitely an important component. Thank you, Marco, for
Thank you, and I apologize. I came in a bit late because
no,
of class.
you're fine. You're fine. And so, preparing the application requirements. Finalizing your list of schools, if you can. I think for those people that are applying in the fall. So if you are a junior, if you're a junior, or if you're a senior, right? So if you're graduating in the fall by December, right, 2021, or if you're graduating in spring 2022, both of those students would have to apply in the fall, so just in a couple months. So right now, what I would say and recommend, and for those students that are not graduating soon, I would still recommend you finalize a list of schools. That way, when you come to summer, I would say by summer, if you can finalize the list of schools, you can identify at least, I'm gonna say 7. Let's go with the lucky number 7, you can at least identify 7 schools and you identify which faculty you want to work with, I would say choose 2 faculty that are somewhat of a match. Choose 2 faculty, review the courses, and review, or does it have funding? Is that a determining factor? So once you identify the list of schools, you also figure out, like, do they require the GRE? Because some schools during the COVID times, the pandemic, they are not requiring the GRE. So that might be a determining factor, and say, maybe I don't want to take the GRE because it's only one school that's on my list that is requiring it. Just like Marco said, with the planner, some sort of online tool, you want to have your CV or your resume, you want to visit multiple, you want to share it, right? You don't want to kind of shy away from giving it to anyone else for feedback. You want to, the TRIO community, it's McNair, it's Student Support Services, it's your faculty mentors, it's the Career Development Center. You want to share it around, and your statements of purpose, your personal statement. Another great resource is the Graduate Studies Resource Center, which I had mentioned before. But there are multiple workshops for the statement of purpose, and that's through GSRC. So please attend, visit their website. And then again, SSS and McNair, we offer support too. So it takes some time. I know that sometimes it takes time to like get inspired and write your your life story. Sometimes it's hard to, reflect on the experiences you've had. So it really takes time. That's why I'm saying, if you can, by the summer, finalize your list, get organized, right? Write everything out, the requirements, the due dates, work on your resume, your CV, and work on your statement so that by, I would say, August, you have a pretty final draft. Or maybe like, close to final draft. So you can share it with your faculty, mentors, so you can share it with TRIO, so you can share it with GSRC. And that way you can have it pretty much done. The goal, I would say, is October. So then comes, midterms, come Thanksgiving, come whatever it is, it's all done, because priority applications are usually due in December. So December 1st is kind of that general application time deadline that students have to meet. There's one, what is it? Oh, sorry, there we go. So the number, yes. And then December 1st, as we mentioned, there is, so funding, right? So funding can come through the institution, but it can also be like scholarships, right? Where it's nationally based, like the Gates Millennium Scholarship. So that one's national, right? So you can take it anywhere. So there are fellowships. So fellowships equals graduate school funding. And that fellowship pays for your tuition. It gives you a stipend. It gives you money to do whatever you want. And it's very nice, very much, you kind of rule your own graduate school pathway versus you need to teach, 6 classes to pay your tuition. And that's the agreement that the university has. So it's kind of a little tricky sometimes where, you can be a research assistant, and that's kind of a better deal if you want to focus on research. So the fellowships, I bring it up because it's important, and they are often due October 1st, November. They're due before, I've seen a lot more deadlines due before the graduate school application. So keep in mind that funding is due kind of hand in hand with your applications. Okay, so for the entrance exam, as mentioned, Graduate Studies Resource Center is a great resource for you, especially the GRE. There are GRE prep sessions. There is a fee, so just keep in mind it's not too much, but right now it's kind of everything's kind of a lot. So check to see what is affordable for you. Check to see if any of the practice exams online are enough for you. Check to see if, you know, there's a big book that you can buy. You can take exams. It's kind of like self-guided. So applications, but also the GRE. The GRE, it's better to take early, right? Because you don't want to be in class, worry about the GRE, and then worry about the applications, and then worry about the fellowship. So everything is kind of should be done before the semester starts, so you feel a little bit more calm, so you can do everything you want. So the GRE, if you can do that by the summer, say August, if you can take the GRE by August. So months in advance, and there's a GRE fee waiver or voucher, reduction voucher, and it's 50% of that. If you're an SSS student or McNair student, you can get a reduction voucher, and you just need to, you know, use it by April. But I would say, again, there's a book, there's practice tests online and on the book, but just, it's still important to prepare for the exam, even though some universities are kind of getting rid of the exam because of COVID. Again, accessibility, sometimes it's not accessible because oftentimes it would have to be in person, but now they're doing GRE examinations at home, but you have to have like a certain camera that you can angle and kind of scan your room. And so there's a lot of kind of, it can be a little difficult challenge with taking the GRE. So just think about it, review the graduate programs to see, does it require a GRE? And sometimes it's, you know, a score. What score do I need to get in for admission? Sometimes the STEM majors have score requirements. Okay, so we said recommendations, that is an important component. The recommendation from a faculty can make or break your admissions offer. So if a faculty member cannot speak to your academic ability or your potential to become a graduate student, it will be very hard to convince the committee. So that means you need to develop those relationships with faculty. Simple way to develop relationships is asking the professor, can you just tell me, I want to get to learn more about you. I want to get to know more about, you know, your graduate school pathway. I'm sure they're going to tell you. If you ask them like, what made you interested in your research? You know, maybe just ask them like, I read your paper. Can you tell me more what inspired you to write this paper? I don't know, anything. So recommendations should be from people that know you, that can say like, oh, Marco's a really great student, hard worker. He's had internships with different industries. He's done research. He's also done well in my lab. But what makes Marco stand out of my like 500 students is that, you know, blah, blah, blah. So you want to have faculty or just anyone else who's writing you a letter to be able to speak super, you know, highly, right? So you ask someone, can you write me a strong letter of recommendation? That's kind of what it means. If they can't speak highly, then it's not worth to ask that person. So you want to have that relationship built, but you also want to have somewhat of a draft with your statement of purpose, right? Because it's helpful. It'll be helpful to know, like, what are you interested in, or why UCLA? Oh, okay, that makes sense. So you want to kind of discuss your plans with your letter recommendation people, right? So way that students have organized this is Word doc and say UCLA professor, deadline, reason, next one, and then the same thing. So you want to kind of review already your materials. So statement of purpose, have a pretty solid draft, your CV or your resume, you know, outlining details, instructions, because sometimes with these applications, they'll say, please insert the email, and they will get a direct email request from us. And oftentimes it'll be like, no, email them, tell them to send it here. So it can sometimes be a little confusing. So just make sure that as you open up the application, so start the application and review and see what are the instructions for the recommenders. Again, give recommenders several weeks to complete that recommendation, right? So think about, are you asking during midterms? Are you asking during finals? Are you asking when the semester first starts and everyone's trying to get into their class? Or so ask in advance. That's why you need to work on your materials in August so that it comes, say, maybe September. I'm going to say maybe mid-September, so faculty can be acclimated. You give them, you know, the email and say, you know, hello, Dr. So-and-so, you know, I'm writing this email so to ask you to, if you can please write me a letter of recommendation for graduate school. These are my reasons. I would love to speak with you more about it in a Zoom call or whatever it is, but you just want to give more detail and not just kind of throw something that now you need, you know, 7 recommendations. So you want to give them time because it kind of takes a while. So reach out to faculty mentors at each program. So you kind of would just, again, as I mentioned, faculty are well connected. I know, you know, we all kind of know each other. I also used to teach at Iowa State, and I knew faculty from different universities. So if my student is asking me for a letter of recommendation and I know the faculty over there, I'm going to say, yes, that's a good match. And I'm going to personally tell this professor that, like, yes, they should admit you. So don't take that lightly. Faculty know each other. So ask them, do you think this would be a good fit? You know, Dr. So-and-so at this university. So again, ask with time, clarity, have your materials in hand so you can share that with your faculty. There's a question. Do you think it's better to ask for recommendations during breaks like summer or winter? That's a good question. Sometimes the summer faculty don't read their emails. Winter, you know, people want breaks too. So it kind of depends. Like if you know someone is responsive to your emails, then yes. But if you kind of see a trend that like they're not emailing you back and it's been 2 to 3 weeks, that kind of probably means that they're kind of disconnected or on vacation, right? Because everyone kind of wants a vacation. So think about the timing. Ask maybe before people go on break, like, you know, when is a good time to meet? I would like to discuss this. Can I follow up with you via email and ask for a letter of recommendation? Will you check your email? I don't know. So if you have that relationship, I would kind of check in advance to preview when is the best time. So securing funding, we kind of talked about this briefly. It does take some time. These deadlines are kind of early. Rule of thumb, you're a student. Whenever you're a student, whether you're undergraduate, graduate, you need to submit FAFSA. Just submit it, because this is federal money that will be cheaper to loan you eventually than to have a private loan, right? Interest rates are way higher. So FAFSA is usually about 4 or 5% in interest rates versus, you know, you name it, private institutions can increase the interest rates at whatever price they want. So that's why submit your FAFSA regardless if you have the money to pay for your education, because there might be an emergency and you might need to take out money and it's, you know, lower interest rates. Applying to fellowships, it does take some time. So as you are looking at graduate schools, you need to look at funding and scholarships, grants, anything that is free money for a graduate education. And one of the best resources, comprehensive pages, is the GSRC website. And there's external and internal fellowships. And almost all of them will ask for official transcripts. Let me see, chat. When graduate applications asked, do you expect to come in with external funding? How should we answer that if we applied for fellowships such as NSF? So sometimes they won't tell you. They won't tell you if you have the fellowship until like April, and you have to give an answer like April 15th. So it's kind of very close. You can tell them that you've applied to like the various fellowships, but it's kind of not guaranteed unless you're a semi-finalist or you're a finalist. So if you know that you've moved in the process, then it's kind of important to share. But if you don't, then they can also be very competitive. So just I'd say if you know that there are people who apply to NSF and got it, it's the National Science Foundation. If there are people that got that fellowship, ask them, what did you include? How do you, what do you think stood out in your application? So that way you can include that in your application. And so to finalize applications, you want your faculty, you want TRIO, you want JSRC, you want multiple eyes. Like, I can't stress enough that it takes multiple drafts. It doesn't just take 2, 3, 4, 5. I've literally seen 10, 11 drafts from students, and it's something that continues to, develop even more, because you might think that, you've described enough detail, but oftentimes students shy away from saying you are, a qualified student. So that's why you want, especially faculty, because they are in the field. You want to have it always reviewed, always. Contact recommenders to remind them of the deadline. As I mentioned, some students don't hear from their recommenders, and then they're stressing out, and then they're trying to find someone last minute. So people forget, people are busy. So just kind of keep them in the loop, especially when you've already maybe, started your application, when you're planning to submit. Always plan for an earlier date than the actual deadline, right? So technology is going to fail, something's going to crash, something's not going to work. So you want time. And you want to prepare for application fees. So are you going to ask for application fee waivers? Are you going to pay for it? Sometimes application fee waivers takes time because you have to email the graduate division, and then they have to ask like, oh, what program are you a part of? So it might be some like back and forth. So just, again, takes time. So once you submit applications, kind of have to, wait a little bit, and not until January, earliest January, but mostly March is when you hear back. So again, right now we say continue to build a strong GPA, continue to be a part of SHIP, build relationships with everyone in terms of your faculty, and then you want to continue to do, activities that align with your goals. Internships, informational interviews, as you're doing with the panel, and your program information sessions if you can attend. So Graduate Studies Resource Center, again, is a great place to get to know, attend, look at the graduate division of your school of choice, graduate program advisors. So there's probably a coordinator at each site. McNair, SSS, again, we're a great resource, faculty mentors, and then fairs that happen every fall. So it's a lot of information. So I'm going to leave my contact there. And I know that Marco also has my contact information, and I'm going to exit. As all of you are probably doing right now, we're doing shared spaces. So I need to have a minute so I can swap with my husband and share the office space. So we'll just take a quick minute, and then I'll share my screen again and share the spreadsheet that we have, okay? All right, so I am back, and I wanted to ask, I don't know if we're out of time, so I'm going to ask the advisors or folks that are here to kind of let me know how we are on time.
You're fine. You're good.
Okay, I know it's a lot of information, so kind of, I don't know if we need to like digest it a little bit. So this is one resource that I wanted to share. And then people can see my screen, correct?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, so this is an example of a student who wanted to organize the graduate school information. So this student said their interest is in physics and astronomy. And so they mentioned the school, the program, the deadline, when they are submitting, or if they've submitted, official transcripts, if they've submitted that, potential professor advisors, and then research areas, requirements, right? Because those are the things that we mentioned to present. So personal essay, diversity essay, which we didn't really talk about. That one's more of, sometimes they'll ask more of like, as an underrepresented member of this community, if you can please describe more your experiences. So they'll tell you, they usually have a prompt to let you know. And let's see, there's a question. The template is amazing. Okay, yes, it is very helpful. See, and there's a requirement. And so it kind of just helps to outline how, how expensive it is. There's some that were $100. Was there a fee waiver? That's important. Waiver approved, letters. See, they mentioned how they know each person, and then the website to the program. So this is one way you can organize your universities. This student applied to basically about 20 programs. And, that's not always common, but it's kind of a good way to ensure that you have graduate school options, right? You don't want to just have your last resort. You want to be able to choose and not just rely on one. You don't know what the circumstances are of each university. Right now during the pandemic, they might have more funding or they might have less. They used to have maybe 10 spots, now they have 5 spots and they're very competitive. Not to say that, any of you are not competitive, but to say that like, there's a lot of great students and it's really hard to sometimes, narrow it down. So better to apply to more. And if it's 7 or more, I would say that's kind of a safer bet than anything under that. And let me share the other like a timeline sample. Let me make it bigger. So this is, again, I'm saying work, try to do this in advance. So even September, I wouldn't say it's late, but it's kind of like you need to make sure you have this done. Create, revise your resume, CV, your graduate school list, your faculty, email from each institution, revise materials, organize yourself, ask for letters of recommendation. So this is kind of like telling you month by month what you should be doing. And in January and through May, it's your waiting time. You have to be, it's your patients are tested. You check out cost of living because it's important, right? What we often talk about with students is that like you can get, say, $30,000 for funding. And it sounds like a lot, but sometimes in California, it doesn't feel like a lot, right? But if you're in like Texas, Arizona, it can be